Chapter 8 Easter. Even though it was nearly Easter, there were still very few nights that it was warm enough to leave Miss Bessie out, and then there was the rain. All March it poured. For the first time in many years, the creek bed held water, not just a trickle either, enough so that when they swung across it, was a little scary looking down at the rushing water below. Jess took Prince Terran across inside his jacket, but the puppy was growing so fast he might pop the jibber any time and fell into the water and drowned. Ellie and Brenda were already fighting about what they were going to wear to church. Since Mama got mad at the preacher 3 years back, Easter was the only time in the year that the Armans went to church, and it was a big deal. His mother always cried it poor, but she put a lot of thought and as much money as she could scrape together into making sure she wouldn't be embarrassed by how her family looked it. But the day before she planned to take them all over to Millsburg Plaza for new clothes, his dad came home from Washington early. He'd been laid off. No new clothes this year. A wail went from Ellie and Brenda like two sirens going to a fire. "You can't make me go to church," Brenda said. "I ain't got nothing to wear, and you know it, just 'cause you're too fat," May Bailey muttered. "Did you hear what she said, Mama? I'm gonna kill that kid." "Brenda, will you shut your mouth?" his mother said sharply. Then more wearily, "We got a lot more than Mr. Easter clothes to worry about." His dad got up noisily and poured himself a cup of black coffee from the pot on the back of the stove. "Why can't we church some things?" Ellie said in her wheedling voice. Brenda burst in. "Do you know what some people do? They church something and wear it, and then take it back and say it didn't fit or something. The stores don't give them no trouble." Her father turned it in a kind of roar. "I never heard such a fool thing in my life. Didn't you hear your mother tell you to shut your mouth, girl?" Brenda stopped talking, but she popped her gum as loudly as she could just to prove she wasn't going to be put down. Jess was glad to escape to the shed than the complacent company of Miss Bessie. There was a knock. "Jess, Leslie, come on in." She looked at first and then sat on the floor near his door. "What's new?" "Lord, don't ask." He tucked the tits rhythmically and listened to the plink, plink, plink in the bottom of the pail. "That bad, huh? My dad's got laid off, and Brenda and Ellie are fit to worry 'cause they can't have new clothes for Easter. Gee, I'm sorry about your dad, I mean," Just grinned. "Yeah, I ain't too worried about these girls. If I know them, they will trick no clothes out of somebody. It would make you throw up to see how these girls make a spectacle of themselves in church. I never knew you went to church." Just Easter, he concentrated on the warm odors. "I guess you think that's dumb or something." She didn't answer for a minute. "I was thinking I'd like to go." He stopped it. "My king, I don't understand you sometimes, Leslie. Well, I've never been to a church before. It would be a new expression for me." It went back to work. "You'd hate it." "Why? It's boring." Well, I'd just like to see for myself." "Do you think your parents would let me go with you?" "You can't wear pants." "I've got some dresses." "Just errands. Wonders never keys." "Here," he said, Open your mouth. Why? Just open your mouth. For once she obeyed it. He sent a stream of warm milk straight into it. Just Aaron's, the name was dribbled, and the milk dribbled down her chin as she spoke. Don't open your mouth now. You're wasting good milk. Leslie started to giggle, choking and coughing. Now, if I could just learn to pitch a baseball, that's right. Let me try again. Leslie scolded her giggle, closed her eyes, and slowly opened her mouth. But now Jas was giggling, so that he couldn't keep his hands steady. You doings, you got me right in the ear. Leslie hunched up her shoulder and rubbed her ear with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. She clasped into giggles about, I'd be obliged if you'd finish milking about and come on back to the house. His dad was standing right there at the door. I guess I'd better go, said Leslie quietly. She got up and ran to the door. Excuse me. His dad moved it inside to let her pass. Jess waited for him to say something more. He just stood there for a few minutes and then turned it and went out. Ellie said she would go to church. Mama would let her wear the see-through blouse, and Brenda would go if she at least got a new shirt. And everyone got something new except just his dad. Neither of one cared it, but just got the idea it might give him a little bargaining power with his mother. Since I ain't getting anything new, could Leslie go to church with us? That girl? He could see his mother rooting about in her head for a good reason to say no. She don't dress right, Mama. His voice sounded as pursy as Alice. Leslie's got dresses. She got hundreds of them. His mother's thin face dropped it. She bit the outside of her bottom lip in a way George sometimes did and spoke so softly Jess and could hardly hear her. I don't want no one poking up their nose at my family. Jess wanted to put his arm around her the way he put it around May belly when she was in need of comfort. She don't poke her nose up at you, Mama. Honest. His mother signed it. Well, if she'll look decent. Leslie looked distant. Her hair was kind of slanted down, and she wore a navy blue jumper over a blouse with tiny old-fashioned-looking flowers. At the bottom of her red knee socks were a pair of shiny brown leather shoes that Jess had never been before, as Leslie always wore sneakers like the rest of the kids in Lurk Creek. Even her manner was decent. Her usual sparkle was toned way down, and she said yes'm and no'm to his mother just as though she were aware of Mr. Aaron's dread of disrespect. Jess knew how hard Leslie must be trying, for Leslie didn't say Mom. Naturally, he comparisons to Leslie, Brenda and Ellie looked like a pair of peacocks with fake tail feathers. They both insisted on riding in the front of the pickup with her parents, which was some kind of a squeeze with Brenda's shape to consider. Jess and Leslie and the little girls climbed happily into the back and sat down on the old seats on his dad had put against the cab. The sun wasn't accidentally shining But it was the first day in so long that the rain wasn't actually coming down that they sang, "Oh Lord, what a morning, yet lovely meadows," and sing a song that Miss Edmonds had taught them, and even jingle bells were joyous, and the wind carried their voices away from them. It made the music seem mysterious, which filled it just with the feeling of power over the hills rolling out from behind the track. The ride was much too short, especially for Joey's son, who began to cry because the Averil interrupted the first verse of Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which after Jingle Bells was her favorite songs, just tinkled her to get her giggle again, so that when the four of them clambered down over the tailgate, they were flushed-faced and happy once more. They were a little late, which didn't bother Ellie and Brenda, for it meant that they got to flounce down the entire length of the easel to the first pew, making sure that every eye in the church was on them and every expression of every eye a jealous one. Lord, they were disgusting, and his mother had been scared that Leslie might embraces her. Just hunched his shoulders and slunk into the pew after the string of women flocks, and just before his dad. Church always seemed the same. Jess could tune it out the same way he tuned it out school, with his body standing up and sitting down in unison with the rest of the congregation, but his mind numb and floating, not really thinking or dreaming, but at least free. Once or twice he was aware of being on his feet with the not loud, not really tuneful sing all around him. At the age of his consciousness, he could hear Leslie singing along, and Josie wondered why she bothered. The preacher had one of those tricky voices. It would buzz along for several minutes quite comfortably. Then bang, he was screaming at you. Each time Jess would jump, and it would take another couple of minutes to relax again, because he wasn't listening to the words. The man's spread face with sweat pouring down seemed strangely out of place in the dull sanctuary. It was like Brenda throwing a tantrum over Joyce and touching her lipstick. It took a while to get Ellie and Brenda pulled away from the front yard of the church. Jess and Leslie went ahead and put the little girls in the back and settled down to wait. "Gee, I'm really glad I came." Jess turned it to Leslie in unbelief. "It was better than a movie." "You kidding?" "No, I'm not." And she wasn't. He could tell by her face. "That whole Jesus thing is really interesting, isn't it?" "Why do you mean?" "All those people wanting to kill him when he hadn't done anything to hurt them." She hesitated. "It's really kind of a beautiful story, like Abraham Lincoln or Socrates or Ellison Lynn." "It ain't beautiful," May Bailey broke in. "It's scary needling holes right through somebody's hand." May Bailey's right just fringed down into the deepest pit of his mind. "It's because we're all real sinners God made just die." "Do you think that's true?" He was shocked. "It's in the Bible." Leslie, she looked at him as if she were going to argue, then seemed to change her mind. "It's crazy, isn't it?" She shook her head. "You have to believe it, but you hate it." "I know have to believe it, and I think it's beautiful." She shook her head again. "It's crazy." May Bailey had her eyes all questioned as though Leslie was some strange creature in a Jew. You gotta believe the Bible, Leslie. Why? It's a genuine question. Leslie wasn't being smartly. 'Cause if you don't believe the Bible, May Bailey's eyes were huge. God'll down you to hell when you die. Would she ever hear a thing like that? Leslie turned it on just as though she were about to accuse him of some wrong he had committed against his sister. He felt hot and cold by her voice and words. He dropped his gaze to the gauny sack and began to fiddle with the revolved edge. That's right, ain't it, Jess? May Bailey's shrill voice immediate. Don't God damn you to hell if you don't believe the Bible. Jess pushed his hair out of his face. I reckon, he muttered it. I don't believe it, Leslie said. I don't even think you read the Bible. I read most of it, Jess said, still figuring the sack. Suppose the only book we got around our place. He looked it up at Leslie and half-frowned. She smiled. Okay, she said, but I still don't think God goes around damning people to hell. They smiled at each other, trying to ignore May Bailey's exhausted little voice. But Leslie, she instead, what if you die? What's going to happen to you if you die?